All right. So today we have the pleasure of speaking with Ben. Ben recently got his results. And Ben, how'd you do?
I passed.
Excellent. How's it feel?
It feels great. It feels like a weight has been lifted off my shoulder a little bit. It feels good knowing that the hundreds of hours I put into studying ultimately became worth it, and I was able to pass.
Excellent. Did you do anything to celebrate?
So I had a vacation plan shortly after the test. Met up with a buddy in North Carolina. So I'm from New Hampshire for context. So it was a decent trip. That was going to happen, pass or fail. That was already booked. So, but it felt good going into that with the weight off my shoulders and just being able to decompress and not having to worry about studying again coming back from that.
Sure. It's kind of like a guilt-free vacation time, right? Because when you come back that, you don't have to go through that again.
Yes.
Excellent. So how about if you don't mind sharing, talk to me a little bit about what part of the industry you're in and why you decided to take the PE exam to pursue your engineering license.
Sure. So I'm in energy, specifically nuclear energy.
Oh, wow.
So I started off at a naval shipyard working for the DoD in nuclear submarines, aircraft carriers, things like that. I was involved mainly in power distribution on board the vessels, breakers, switchgear, cabling, transformers, etc. Um, Transitioned from that job to a commercial nuclear plant where I've done a mixed bag of things. Been involved with the motor program, some design work, troubleshooting activities. It's really whatever they throw at you. So I was looking at the PE license for two reasons. I don't need it in my current role. There's no expectation for me to ever have to stamp anything. And in my current role, it really doesn't, well, for transparency, it just wouldn't get me more money, right? So that's what some people get it for, right?
Sure.
So I got it for two reasons. One, because I wanted to strengthen my knowledge in just electrical engineering principles and power engineering principles. I felt like I was lacking there. So I really just took it as a challenge to learn the material. And secondly, because I wanted to add it to my resume in hopes of getting a new opportunity or opening some doors in the future.
Sure, definitely. Yeah, as someone that did quite a bit of hiring too in my past career, I can tell you that anytime someone had PE at the end of their name, their resume, as one would expect, typically filters to the top. Now, did you take the PE exam before, or was this your first time?
This was my first time.
First
I never
time.
took it before. First time.
Excellent. That's
feels good to pass the first time.
I bet it does. Yeah, that's fantastic. I always love hearing that. How about so you didn't have any experience with the prior paper and pencil format, so the CBT format was your first time taking the PE exam. Would you mind talking about maybe some of the challenges you faced studying for both the exam and the CBT format, and maybe what you did to kind of overcome them?
Sure. So the exam as a whole, just the amount of content,
Sure.
right? So going into this thing, I'm looking at the syllabus, and you have 9 major topic areas, and I'm thinking I'm not familiar with 8 out of 9 of these. So I had experience with motors and rotating machines, not to the level that you need for the PE exam, but I had a decent amount of experience there to help me with that subject. But National Electric Code, in a job, I've never looked at the National Electric Code. I've looked at it to do work on my house, but that's about it. So there was obviously a lot of content there that I wasn't familiar with, that I knew was going to be a struggle. So, I kind of downloaded the syllabus. I looked at it and said, how do I want to tackle this? Do I want to buy a bunch of books? Do I want to sign up for a review course? And so once I figured out how I wanted to tackle it, which was obviously signing up for your review course, it made it a lot easier to overcome that because of the structure you put into your course, right? It's structured in a way that you can digest each topic fairly easily, without getting lost in the weeds somewhere. So that was the first major challenge. with the exam as a whole. The second challenge, I never did the pen and paper, obviously. So going to the CBT, when I did the FE CBT exam a couple years ago. So I was comfortable with the CBT format. For the PE specifically, I didn't want to bog myself down wasting time on things that weren't going to be on the exam that may have showed up on the pen and paper one, right? So like formulas, for example, typically now, if the formula's not in the handbook, it's probably not going to show up on the exam. If they do, they might give it to you in the problem, right? Whereas with the pen and paper one, I mean, anything was fair game, right? So as I'm reviewing some of the practice questions or topics, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, well, I can't solve this with the handbook. Do I want to spend time trying to figure this out if the chance of it being on the exam is, a fraction of a percent? So that was the kind of the challenge there was, what material do I skip over and what do I focus on? So, and again, I think that's where your course came in handy, especially with the live lectures, because you obviously have the most up-to-date information there, just being able to focus in on what really is important.
Sure. So if I'm hearing you, it sounds like the biggest challenge, really just the overall scope of the exam and compared to your actual experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my personal experience was lacking in terms of scope of the exam, right? And then I know everyone will have their own challenges. Some people will know the material but be challenged with time, right? So time wasn't an issue for me. But yeah, it was just the breadth of knowledge you needed to gain.
Got it. How about how'd you find our online class for the PE exam?
So Reddit.
Reddit. Sure.
Yep. So I'm a big lurker on Reddit. I don't really post, contrary to me posting on your board. But I've been subscribed to the PE exam subreddit for a couple years now. Just kind of casually browsing it, and I would see your course come up every now and then with positive reviews. And then finally, when I decided I wanted to actually take it, and then I searched for more information on there, it was just everybody had positive things to say. I mean, you couldn't really find anything negative about it. So I just figured I wasn't going to waste any more time, comparing the different courses. I just kind of jumped on board.
Got it. Yeah, a lot of people I've found will do that. As soon as the PE exam kind of pops in their mind as a goal to obtain in the future, kind of start looking for different resources or maybe Facebook groups or subreddits to be a part of. And so you can kind of start accumulating, I would say, like the overall kind of tribal knowledge, or see how everyone else is doing. That way, when you're ready to take the exam, you kind of have a better plan moving forward. Great. So I find that's interesting. So you said you don't post much on Reddit, but Ben, you were one of the most active students on our discussion board. That's interesting. Yeah, we have. So for anyone that's going to be watching this, we have what I like to consider, the largest, most engaged, most active private message board for the Power PE exam. Yeah, Ben, you were on fire. I mean, I'd be responding to one student, and all of a sudden it'd pop up, say there's a new reply, and you'd beat me to it almost word for word with exactly what I was going to respond with. How'd you like that? Did you find that was a good learning experience, being able to just kind of talk through the problems with other people in the class? Or
Absolutely. I think and there's going to be a kind of a curve to it, and you probably have the data on this. As your semester goes on, you start off the semester with a handful of people. You probably peak in the middle of it, right? And then people start dropping off towards the end. So the activity on the board is going to reflect that, right? So I think when I first joined, I believe I signed up about 2 or 3 weeks before that semester was starting. So I signed up. I said, there's not a whole lot of activity going on here, probably because people hadn't signed up yet, right? And so I kind of just took it on my own and said, you know what, if I want to see activity here, then I need to be contributing. So I started posting some stuff, and then, I would notice something might go unanswered for a couple of days, and I was like, let me just take a stab at it. And then after doing that a couple of times, I got comfortable with it and said, it doesn't matter if I'm right or wrong. If I'm wrong, somebody's going to come behind me and correct me, right? So whether that's you or somebody else. So I know that's kind of a fear in a lot of people's mind. They don't post on the public forums because they don't want to be wrong, right? But we're all here in the same boat. We're all here to try to learn this material. So if you learn it better if you actually try to answer somebody's question, right? So, to anybody in the class now or joining the class, I would certainly encourage you to participate on those discussion boards, ask your own questions, but then also answer people's questions. And if you're only 70% confident, then that's okay. Because if you're wrong, somebody's going to come behind you and give you the right answer, and it's going to stick in your brain a lot better that way.
Yeah. What's interesting, so I'm gonna kind of pick up a comment that you said that was interesting, is a lot of people, they're afraid to be wrong, right? And one of the notions I try to dispel right away is no one knows each other. We're pretty much anonymous online. We might have usernames that reflect our real names, but I mean, for the most part, we really don't know each other, and there's nothing really to be ashamed of if we answer a question wrong publicly or anything like that. And I feel like, especially as engineers, right? We want to be right. We're uncomfortable if we don't understand something, or we're uncomfortable if we feel like we don't have a complete understanding of something. So a lot of times people are afraid to speak up because they think they're going to be judged, right? Oh my gosh, if I answer this and I'm wrong, then people are going to think I'm wrong about everything, and it's really not the case. Especially when we're learning something new, right? No one can skip that learning process for whatever the subject is, and kind of making mistakes. It's just all part of that learning process. And I found that taking the time, the students that do, especially like yourself, that are the most active on our board, the ones that are taking the time to really type through their thought process, that really kind of cements that to long-term memory. It really helps kind of clear things up.
Yeah, and there were certainly examples, at least with me. I'd go, stare at a problem for an hour, solve it 3 or 4 times, not able to figure out what I'm doing wrong. So I go to post it, and then just typing it out makes it clear what the answer is. And I come up to the answer before I even finish typing the thing. But I post it anyway, just so other people can learn from my mistake there. But, just typing it and seeing it in a different format and trying to verbalize your thoughts can be a very helpful learning tool.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, I mean, you can see a post that's, a small paragraph, but that might have taken an hour of trying to, okay, I got to put this into words in a way that makes sense, and in a way that someone else on the other side of this computer screen, is going to understand. It really,
Right.
it challenges, our mental models of subjects and ideas, and how well we can think through them to really reinforce that. So yeah, I definitely agree. How about, let's talk about some of the subjects on the exam. Which subjects were the easiest for you to learn?
So easiest. So I already spoke about rotating machines, motors. That's where I had the experience with. Not so much the calculations, but the theory of it, I think, was just easier for me to learn. Um, Applications, that whole section on applications, I think, was pretty easy. Not that I have experience with it, but it seemed like a lot of the problems, at least the quantitative ones, seem to be more just plug and play type things. And then the qualitative ones, for me, at least being an electrical engineer, they seemed more like common sense type ones, or ones you could easily guess at. That might not be true for a non-electrical engineer, but I seem to be all right with the applications. And then what surprised me was the codes and standards. So earlier I mentioned that I didn't have any experience with the code. Obviously there's a learning curve there, getting familiar with it, kind of learning the layout of the code and what the content is and how to apply it, right? But once you get past that, the questions, you look them up. I mean, the answer's there, you just got to find it. So, on the test, you're dealing with those questions. It doesn't come down to, you might have a calculation on generators that you either know or you don't. But with the code, it's there. You just have to find it in the code. So, I struggled with it a little bit at the beginning, just getting familiar with it. But I think towards the end, it was probably one of my strongest subjects. And I think the questions you put into the homework and the practice tests, they really test you on the whole code or as much of it as you can, right? So they expose you to as much as you can and as little questions as possible, and that's what makes you get a better understanding of the code. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, that's really interesting. I find a lot of engineers taking the exam hate applications because it's like, this mix of subjects that don't really have anything to do with each other, all lumped into one category called applications. Even though, when I hear applications, I think, what's the correct application of a motor? Do I need, high torque, constant torque, low torque? So it's an interesting category, but a lot of people, they're so unfamiliar with it, and it's so unlike any of the other subjects we have to learn. People just, they freak out. But I agree. I think applications, it seems the depth of it seems way less. So most of the problems seems kind of surface level compared to transformer theory, motor theory, code lookup with terminology like maximum, minimum, or shall or maybe, that kind of stuff. Great. And yeah, it's a good thing you like the code because, as you know, that's the second largest subject by number of problems.
Yeah.
Am I correct in guessing that your background is mostly kind of like boots on the ground, hard hat, probably lots of motor control centers, probably all sorts of instrumentation and measurement, maybe, levels and tanks or pressure, flow meters, that kind of stuff. And maybe
Yes.
larger transformers, substations, all that kind of stuff.
So not so much larger transformers. My practical experience is really limited to 13.8 kV.
Sure.
And even then, it's very limited with that. So most of my exposure has just been up to like 4160. But yeah, you're correct. I've done a lot of field work, boots on the ground, either on the boat or in the plant itself. So yeah, some of the stuff was brand new to me, right? Like transmission lines. I mean, I've never studied transmission lines. So all that was brand new.
Got it. Yeah. People are always surprised to learn that in the industrial environments, the NEC really isn't, typically you're under a different, especially I'm sure nuclear, under a different regulatory, but you're not really doing code lookup problems compared to kind of the MEP or AEC industry with building design.
Right. And I mean, the Navy has their own codes and standards, right? But it is funny because working through the code and learning, some of the requirements, it would kind of jog something in my brain and say, hey, I recognize this from work, looking at a protection calculation or something from work where we say, all right, what's the setting on this breaker need to be? And I would say, all right, I'd recognize that, and I'd go back. I kind of looked at some of our design documents or our procedures after the fact, and a lot of those NEC requirements are just built into our procedures and our drawings. So, this whole time I was using stuff from the NEC, I just didn't really know it because I wasn't referencing it directly. It's just built into our processes.
Got it. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So if those were the easiest subjects for you, what were the harder? You mentioned transmission lines, but I'm curious, what were some of the harder subjects to tackle?
So yeah, so transmission lines. So I didn't know. It was new to me, but I didn't find it particularly difficult. So we can skip over that. Protection for sure was the hardest, and I think just because of the breadth of that and the fact that most of those questions are qualitative and not quantitative, it doesn't involve as many calculations, right? I didn't know how to prepare for it outside of the material you had in your class, right? So I had done did the on-demand module. I think I worked through it 2 or 3 times, and then the live class. Or actually, no, I didn't have the live class because my test was right before that. But I had the questions from the practice test, and I kept missing some of the same questions over and over again. So it was hard. It was definitely my weakest subject. I was trying to get some additional help outside of your class, right? Like I would just Google articles or YouTube videos, in the couple weeks leading up to the test, just try to get some more info. But protection was tough. And then I will say symmetrical components and fault current analysis. Those were difficult. I still rank protection harder than them. I think for symmetrical and fault current, after enough repetition, it kind of just stuck with me, and I got it towards the end. So I felt good about those subjects going into the exam.
Yeah, symmetrical components, it's just a time sink. The amount of time it takes to really, really have a working knowledge of it to where you can put it down on paper and solve problems. It's really time consuming. That tends to be a common one when I ask, what's your least favorite or what's the most difficult? That's definitely one of the more common ones. How about, here's a good question. What turned out to be the most effective use of your time when you were studying? What after doing it, made you think, okay, I'm making tons of progress doing this. I'm going to keep doing it.
So 100% the on-demand videos. And the reason I say that, right, everybody's schedule is going to be different. Mine was very much, hey, I got 15 minutes now. I'm going to do something, right? So the on-demand videos, I could load those up, watch one or two of them, 2x speed, just chug through them. And, I'd do it. I wouldn't be taking notes or anything. I just kind of sitting there, watch them and absorb the information. And that helped me because it was, I think I got through most of the on-demand material before live class started. So I kind of used that as the intro, right? And then I used the live class to cement the knowledge. So the on-demand stuff helped me figure out what was important, what I needed to know. And it was in a format that tailored to my lifestyle, right? Or my schedule. So those were definitely the most beneficial.
Excellent. How about let's contrast that to anything. Did you find yourself saying, okay, I put a bunch of time into this and I didn't get much out of it? Anything turned out to be kind of a waste of time or a least effective use of your time while you're studying?
So that'd be towards the end, like I was just describing, where I was just Googling and YouTubing random videos or articles about protection. Um, most of it I found was repetitive to what I had already learned in your class. So I didn't feel like I was getting anything new out of it. And I felt like it was a waste of time. I had an old textbook back from my college days on power analysis.
Which
And
one?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I don't think it's the one from any recommended references you have, but it was funny. It was a graduate level class I took as an elective my senior year, and I don't remember any of it, but I cracked open the textbook, and sure enough, there was everything we talked about: protection, symmetrical components, all this stuff in our syllabus for this exam, and I had it in that book. So I spent some time digging through that book, but even then, I didn't feel like I was getting much out of it. I think it was too much detail for what I felt like I needed to know for the exam. So yeah, I'd say that was my waste of time there.
Got it. Kind of sounds like, undirected material or unorganized material, or not specifically organized to target the PE exam.
Absolutely. And that was, like I said, in my last 2 or 3 weeks, I had done all the on-demand material. I did 4 or 5 practice tests. So, I felt ready. So I was just trying to find some extra stuff to do. And so this is what I ended up doing. And it felt useless for the most part.
What was your study schedule? Like how many hours a week were you putting in?
I'd guess between 20 to 25.
A week?
I think, yeah,
Wow.
I think I was doing 2 to 3 each day, each weekday. Probably not 25, probably 20. Yeah, I think I was doing about 2 to 3 each weekday, and then yeah, I'd go probably about 5 hours Saturday, 5 hours Sunday. About, it was on and off. Because I do have two kids, so it was kind of fitted in where I can. So the only time I really set aside strict blocks is when I was doing practice exams. Otherwise, I just kind of tried to study until the kids disturbed me, and then go play with them, and then study some more later. Which, like I said, is why I really value the 10 or 15-minute videos, because you can just do those when you have time to.
Sure, kind of like bite-sized segments.
Yeah.
Man, wow, 20 hours a week. That's definitely kind of the upper echelon of I would say average studying. How many
Sure.
months did you spread that over?
Just under three.
3?
Just under three. So, um, that's what I felt like I needed to prepare for it up front. I said, let me set a goal of 3 months. Um, I think it was even closer to 4 months, but by the time I was able to register for the exam, the available dates made it so, I could either do it at like 5 months or three. So I was like, well, I like the pace I'm going at, so let's shoot for 3 months and see what happens.
I think of the sweet spot is right around 4 months. 3 months definitely doable with a really focused study schedule, kind of like what it sounds like you were doing. I
And,
think
and I'll admit, I was a little fortunate. I was able to spend some of that study time at work. So, it wasn't all strictly 20 hours at home doing it.
sure, yeah, no,
I
that's
know not
great.
everyone has that luxury, but
Yeah, some employers are more sympathetic. Some employers are recent PEs and remember what it was like, and other employers are like, it's not my problem. If you want it, you gotta figure it out. You gotta find the time.
yeah.
But yeah, I think I would say 4 hours is kind of the sweet spot. I get asked all the time, how many hours do I need to study? It's different for everybody, right? How many months do I need to study? It's different for everyone. Everyone's got different background on their skill set. Depending on what industry. Are they coming from the industrial world, like you are, and where my experience come from? Are they coming from protection and controls? Or are they coming from transmission planning? Are they coming from MEP or AEC or building design? So they're going to have a different kind of background theory, background application from their day to day, and then how fresh out of college. Are you brand new out of college, first year on the job? Haven't had a whole lot of time to kind of soak up that experience. Are you mid-level kind of engineer, junior engineer, or are you a senior engineer? And it really it always just comes down to personal strengths, personal weaknesses, and individual needs. But yeah, it's I always like hearing when people are able to put in the hours and knock it out in like 3 months is excellent. And it also comes down to risk tolerance. A lot of people are of the mindset of, I don't care what it takes, I'm passing on the first try. And that was definitely my mindset when I took the PE exam. I was like, just like you, when I started, it was like, holy cow, how am I going to learn all of this in the time I have to do it? It's just too much, too much. And it's like, I'm not going to put myself through this again. I'm going to crank out 20, 25 some hours and knock it out in 3 or 4 months and be done, and other people with higher risk tolerance, they're going to say, I'm going to study for 2 months. I'm going to do everything I can in 2 months, give it a shot. If I don't pass, I'll do it again in 2 months, so it really just depends on that risk tolerance. What else can we talk about? How about, here's a good one. Now that you passed the PE exam, if you could go back in time, it's one of my favorite questions. If you could go back in time, is there anything you wish you knew in advance, or is there anything you would do differently?
So that's a tough one to answer, right? Because I passed the exam my first try. So in hindsight, I don't know that I would do anything different to try to pass. I think the only advice I would give is just make sure you have structure to it, right? And this gets into another question, but it's worth it. It's like, when I was first starting, and I didn't take any review course for the FE exam. I just bought material for that and did it on my own. But for the PE, I felt like the value is there to sign up for one of these courses for the structure, right? Because I could have easily spent twice as much time reading textbooks, watching random YouTube videos, doing whatever I needed to do to prepare for the exam. Um, so yeah, I mean, if you're in that boat now and you're spending time doing that, I would encourage you to just sign up for one of these courses, because the value's there. The price tag might seem a little high, but the way I think of it is, I'm saving time, right? I'm saving 200 hours maybe, right? And then if you break it down to how much money you're spending for 200 hours of time, it's nothing, it's peanuts. So yeah, that's what I would say for that. Answer that question.
Excellent. How about any advice you'd give an engineer that's going to maybe watch this on our YouTube channel or LinkedIn? If anyone's watching this and maybe they're looking at material to get ready, any advice you would give them, someone that's getting ready to take the PE exam?
Sure. So for the prep, right? So there's two parts, right? There's for the prep, which is find what works for you, right? In my case, it was this course, all right? And truthfully, your course may not be perfect for everyone. Some people may not like your teaching style, right? I particularly liked it. I know a lot of people do based on all the positive reviews you get. But every one of these courses has free content out there, has free videos, sample videos. So go, pick 2 or 3 courses you might be interested in, look at the sample videos, get a feel for what you like, and then just pull the trigger and subscribe. The money will take care of itself, because assuming you pass the test, most people leverage that into some sort of a raise. But don't waste time on things that aren't really helping, right? Like, I mean, I already gave my example, but make sure you're making the most out of your time. And then for the exam itself, if you're getting ready to take the exam, just go into it. You want to feel confident, right? And go into it. Take your time. I know that's kind of an oxymoron on a time test, but you want to take your time. You want to make sure you're reading the questions multiple times, answering them correctly, and know yourself. Know what you need to do the day before or the day of to give yourself the best shot. So this goes into one of your other questions, right? So the day before, I took the day off from work, and I didn't do anything to prepare. I said, I'm as prepared as I can be. So I'm just going to relax, take the day off, and spend time with the family. Made sure to get a good night's sleep. And then the day of, if you're one to get headaches, I certainly get headaches sometimes when I'm staring at a screen for 8 hours. I took some medicine early in the morning just to kind of prevent it. Took some again at lunchtime, again, just to prevent it. And you definitely want to eat a light lunch, because I mean, I felt like I was eating a light lunch, but I got back in the first 20 minutes after lunch. I was just kind of sitting there with a heavy stomach. And it takes your concentration away from the test. So those would be my tips for the actual test.
Got it. Yeah, the headaches, right? It's all that brain power, all the gears spinning, trying to work through problems and kind of tease out those values.
Yeah, and you encourage that during your course, saying when you do the practice exam, simulate the real thing, right? And that's important. Shut your phone off. Sit down with the practice test and just work it like the real thing. And if nothing else, that'll get you used to solving problems for 8 hours.
Yeah. What else? Anything else you can think of, or anything else you'd like to share or talk about here towards the end that we didn't cover?
Let's see. Let me look at my notes. No, I think we pretty much covered everything. I will say, the content of everything on the site, I think was of great value, right? The on-demand videos and courses, those quizzes, that was kind of my starting point. I went through that. I felt like I got a good feel for everything. The live classes were great value, I think. I'll admit I did not watch them live. I would play them back on 2x speed the next day. They were just a little too slow for me. And plus, like I said, it's hard for me to sit there for 4 hours with the two kids, watching that continuously. But I kept to the structure, which was the very next day I would watch it back, so that I didn't have a backlog of live videos to catch up on. So those were good. And if you do watch them live, the discussion during it is great. Sometimes messages can get lost because there are a lot of people chatting. But for the most part, if you ask a question in the chat, somebody's going to answer it. The practice test, I think, was great, right? And I know people can purchase that separately, but you get that as part of the subscription if you sign up. It was the most intense practice test that's on the market, I think, at least the ones I did. And your explanations are just complete, right? There's no questions on that test, on that exam, where you read the solution and you say, hey, I still don't know what I'm doing here, right? You have the other exams out there where you read the solution and they have one line or two lines and you still don't know how to solve the problem. So that's pretty good. And then the AIT test is just a great challenge. It's, obviously it's meant to be reflective of the, 5 to 10 questions you might get on the PE exam that are AIT type, but, trying to work through those 80 problems or so was very challenging. And you get to the end and you realize you got a lot of them wrong. And, that's just the style of the AIT questions that it's hard to get those right, especially when they're multiple choice things. You got to pick 3 out of 5 or something. It's always tough to get those. So yeah, I would say, to anybody watching this on the fence, I would certainly encourage you to pull the trigger. It's you don't want to waste time trying to do stuff on your own if, Zach's kind of already found the secret formula sort of to passing the exam. And I'm sure you have metrics, some sort of metrics you keep, right, on pass rates and first time, second time takers for your students. So I think it's worth the price tag, and I would do the same thing again if I had to do it over again.
Excellent. Well, Ben, we're right about here at the end. Hey, again, thanks for coming on. I appreciate you sharing more with us about your experience as a student in our online class, sharing kind of the things that worked for you, the things that didn't work for you, and kind of the challenges you ran into. Always, gotta love the first time pass stories, especially when it's someone that was so active, in our program like you. Man, every day I'd be there answering questions. Boom, Ben got it. And it's exciting to me when I see that, because it's like, okay, this person's putting in the work. When they have a question, they're going to figure it out based on what we've already learned, and they're really getting that repetition. And it's really clear who's putting in the work, who's connecting the dots. So always love those success stories. So hey, Ben, again, thanks for joining us. Best of luck with your future career. Probably pretty soon here, you're going to get your license number assigned to you by your state. And
I already did.
You did? All right.
I already got it. Already ordered my seal.
There you go. Did you get a seal or a stamp or both?
Oh, I'm sorry, a stamp. I got a stamp.
I was so excited I got both. I wanted to get both and see which one I'd like to use the most.
It's funny. I got the stamp. I put it on my desk at home, and then the next day, like 4 different drawings that my kids did have the stamp on it. I was like, all right, I guess I'll put that away somewhere safer.
Yeah. They want to be like daddy.
Yeah.
So do you update your email signature and your LinkedIn signature to have?
I did. Yep.
Are the
email updated, LinkedIn updated.
You getting pestered by recruiters yet on LinkedIn now that you got
a little bit? Yeah, a little bit, but it's all right. I like it.
Yeah. It's all part of it, right? All part of it.
Yeah.
All right, Ben. Well, great talking with you. Thanks for joining us, and best of luck. And feel free to keep in touch. You know where to find me.
All right. Thank you, and thanks for the excellent class.
Definitely. See you, Ben.
See ya.